Welcome to the Next Level Human podcast. As a human, you have a job to do. In fact, you have 4 jobs: to earn and manage money, to attain and maintain health and fitness, to build and sustain personal relationships, to find meaning and make a difference. None of these jobs are taught in school, and that is what this podcast is designed to do. To educate us all on living our most fulfilled lives through the mastery of these 4 jobs. I'm your host, Dr. Jade, Teta, and I believe we are here living this life for 3 reasons and 3 reasons only: to learn, to teach, and to love. In this podcast, I will be learning, teaching, and loving right along with you. I'm grateful to have your company. Here's to our next level. Welcome to today's show, everybody. Today I am doing something with a guest, and I don't have an affiliation with this company, or at least I didn't. But this is one of those situations where you're down a rabbit hole in the internet, you're reading, and you're wanting to look at certain things, and you are coming across particular things. And in this particular case, I was doing research on thermal stress in humans. And the hypothesis that I have been reading about for many years has been this idea that we humans, part of the reason our metabolism suffers some of the fate that it does is that we are in constantly thermal neutral temperatures, anywhere from 68 to 74 degrees. Our body no longer has the ability to have to heat itself up and cool itself down, which uses a ton of energy to do this. And in fact, we think, many evolutionary anthropologists believe that 2 things primarily are sort of these hidden causes of potential weight gain. One is the way that we used to sit. The other is the way that we used to expose ourselves to temperature extremes. So I'll do something on the sitting next, but one of the things that fascinate me, I'll give you a brief sort of take on that, is one of the things that's kind of fascinating is if you look into non-exercise associated thermogenesis, this idea that activities of daily living can use up a ton of energy. One of the things that I wanted to do is go, okay, well, it makes sense that Paleolithic, evolutionary, ancestral humans were moving a lot more, but is that true? Because they also were probably resting a lot more too. And when you go and look, some of the anthropological data and study of modern day hunter-gatherers show that they do move a little bit more, but not enough to compensate for some of what we see. But one of the things they do that is pronounced is when they sit, they actually don't use chairs, obviously, and they're not leaning against trees and things like that. They're actually kneeling, or they have rest positions that are semi-active. And it's that these active rest positions that might be burning a ton of calories. And so that's one thing I'll touch on in future episodes. But another thing is this idea of temperature regulation and how changes in temperature mitigate some of the responses of our metabolism to shiver and use energy to heat us up, this sort of uncoupling that happens inside of our mitochondria that actually causes us to heat up a little bit when we're exposed to colder temperatures, cold temperatures, outside temperatures and things like that, as well as sweating and cooling us down. And one of the things, too, about this is that when we sleep, we all have heard, and certainly I've talked about that on this podcast as well, that adequate sleep and all the sleep stages are incredibly important in terms of regulating hormonal hunger and cravings and metabolic rate and all of these kinds of things. So one of the things that happens as we go to sleep and the sun goes down, we get less exposure to blue light, more exposure to red lights, and because of the reflection coming off the moon and things like that, but moonlight instead of sunlight, so less blues and more reds. And we also get a drop in temperature, obviously, as the sun goes down. And so one of the things that happens is this lack of exposure to light, as well as this drop in temperature and a cooling of our core body temperature, helps us sleep more deeply. And one of the studies I saw was this study where they took a small group of men. It was about 40 men. This is 2014 study, and it was published in the Journal of Diabetes, I believe. It basically had men sleep in 66-degree weather inside a sleep, sort of study chamber for, inside a university setting. And they slept with basically scrubs on and just a single sheet in 66 degrees. And this was done for a month. And they measured, in the beginning of this month, they measured their degree of calorie burning fat, this brown fat. And then after the month, they measured it again after sleeping in this 66 degrees. Now, they had the same group of people also sleep in 72 degrees, and they even went up as high as 88 degrees at different times as well. And they looked at what the changes were. And what they saw is that when they were sleeping in cold temperatures, their body dropped, their temperature dropped, their temperature dropped faster. They slept better, but they had a 42% increase in their ability to metabolize fat. Well, let me put it this way. They had a 42% increase, not in their ability to metabolize fat, but in their brown fat that actually is this uncoupling fat that helps us burn more fat. So there's a difference between sort of white adipose tissue and brown or beige adipose tissue. And the brown or beige has more mitochondria, and they actually burn fuel a little bit more like muscle does. So they saw a 42% increase in this beiging of fat, where the fat got more active. And this fat is where the uncoupling happens. It creates more heat and wastes a little bit more energy. So it's very beneficial for weight loss. And they had a 10% increase in their ability to metabolize fat. And so what ended up happening, they also had a ton of improvement in insulin sensitivity and some other markers of metabolism. Now, what this did for me when I first saw this study is get into this a little bit deeper, looking at different things that I could use in my own life to basically cold sleep. One of the things I was doing was cranking up my air conditioner up to about 63 or down to about 63 and sleeping in very cold temperatures. But this was obviously not the best thing to do in terms of energy savings and things like that. And I stumbled across different products that helped me, different beds, high-tech beds actually, and high-tech covers that could actually cool you down while you sleep. And I stumbled across one called 8 Sleep. And 8 Sleep is a high-tech bed company. What it essentially is a foam mattress covered by a high-tech sensor cover that goes over this foam mattress that actually allows you to cool yourself down, heat yourself up, and it actually knows when you fall asleep, and you can set the temperature, and then it drops down the temperature, just like simulating a drop in sort of the ambient temperature at night if you were living outdoors and the sun went down. And the research on this shows that sleeping in cooler temperatures can actually increase deep sleep. And obviously, this is what these men were doing in terms of increasing their metabolic rate. This same company actually measures other things as well. It measures HRV. It measures movement during sleep. Heart rate variability is HRV, by the way. It's a measure of sympathetic and parasympathetic dominance and recovery. And so it's measuring all these different biofeedbacks, your movement in the bed, what's going on with heart rate variability, how your sympathetic versus parasympathetic system is balanced. And it's measuring all and extrapolating all the different stages of sleep. And so I got one of these beds for myself, the 8 Sleep. I fell in love with it. And when I was going back and forth between North Carolina and Los Angeles, I had actually one in Los Angeles, and I ended up getting one for Asheville as well. Well, to make a long story short, I have fallen in love with the 8 Sleep company. It's something that I use every day. Of the tech I use 8 Sleep. I use the Oura Ring. I use a continuous glucose monitor. I'm a big fan of different tech that helps me live a healthier lifestyle. And I went out and asked 8 Sleep, about some of their things, and they were like, "Hey, you should talk to our CEO." So I got Matteo on the show. Franceschetti is his name, and he's an Italian. He's a real Italian. I'm an Italian-American, so I joke about that with him a little bit. But he walks us through how he came up with this company, some of the tech regarding this company, and I just loved this conversation and loved him taking time out of his busy schedule. And I want you to kind of hear about this. But really, This is about using tech, and I'm going to be doing a lot more on using tech to help us in our journey towards health and fitness. The job of health and fitness, we all have to do this job, attain and maintain health and fitness. And if we can use tech to help us recreate what our metabolism is designed for, this can make a huge difference in the way our metabolism functions and help us attain and maintain optimal body composition and optimal health. And so I want to welcome you to today's show and welcome you to Matteo Franceschetti, who is the CEO of the company. So I'm going to let us get into the interview, and then I'm going to have a little bit more to say after the interview as well. So without further ado, here's Matteo Franceschetti, CEO of 8 Sleep. All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's show. I have a special guest today with me, and he is my Italian brother, although he's a real Italian, and I'm the fake American Italian. But Matteo, and the pronunciation of his last name is Franceschetti. So that's how you say his name, Matteo Franceschetti. And he is the co-founder and CEO of a product that I discovered a while back when I was delving into the research on cold sleep and fat tissue beiging and all the metabolic benefits that come along with this. So 8 Sleep is his company, and it is actually, I'm going to let him tell you more about it and more of his story. But this is one of those cases where I found Matteo because I fell in love with his product, and I wanted him to come on and tell you about this particular product. So Matteo, thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to hang with us, man. And it's nice having an Italian on with me, so I can get some of that to rub off on me as well. And tell us a little bit about your story, man. So how did you get started in this world?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to share more about us. And I'm really proud that you discovered us through the product first. Mm-hmm. And then now today we have the opportunity to chat together. Around 5 years ago, I was the typical entrepreneur working long hours, stressed out. And I started looking into sleep to see if I could sleep less in order to have more hours for my day. And I have always been an athlete. When I was a teenager, I was a tennis player. I was playing tennis tournaments. Then my professional career started. And so I stopped that part of life. But I have always been into recovery and performance. And so 5 years ago, I started looking into sleep, and I started wondering why Elon Musk is taking me to Mars, and I still spend a third of my life on a piece of dumb foam. Why there is no technology in our sleep, right? Let's say I live 100 years, I'm going to spend 33 years on a piece of dumb foam. That was not making sense to me. And I said, okay, how can we fix it? And that is how 8 Sleep started.
I love that. So it's basically a situation where, I'm an entrepreneur as well. And so Matteo's story, it's interesting, right? Entrepreneurs are kind of like, how in the world are we still in the dark ages in terms of sleep? The technology has not changed one bit. So you took it upon yourself to kind of come in and say, how can we make our sleep high tech? Now, one of the things that I love about this particular mattress is it's doing a couple things. And I want you to correct me. This is really a question, but I'm going to phrase it in terms of a statement. The way I see this mattress is it's doing a few things. One, it is sort of controlling our body temperature so that we can sleep more deeply. So, there's obviously the quantity of sleep and the quality of sleep, but it looks like this is doing things, especially in terms of the way this mattress can heat us up and cool us down to sort of control body temperature. But the other thing that it's doing is it's gathering biometrics from my body as I sleep. So as I breathe, as my heart beats, as I go through heart rate variability, which is a measure of my sympathetic to parasympathetic nervous system state, it's picking up on all of these things. And it's also picking up on the sleep stages that I'm going through. And so for me, this is an amazing piece of information to have because, like you said, I'm spending 6 to 9 hours in this apparatus. I want to get the most quality out of it. And then I also want something to be able to feed back to me to say, here is what is going on with your physiology. And here's how this tech is improving it or how you can improve it. So when I say that to you, do I have this correct in terms of the way that you have set this up? And what else do you want us to know about what this technology does? Because it is a brand new technology in sleeping. And what are the things that it's doing that I mentioned, and maybe some things that I haven't mentioned that you want to clue us into?
Yeah, so let's start to reinforce what you just said. Let's start for a second from our vision. Our vision is based on two pillars. One, we want to compress sleep. What if you could sleep only 6 hours and get more rest than when you were sleeping 8 hours? How can we leverage technology to achieve that? Second, we want to save your life. So what if we can scan and track your body while you are asleep in order to let you know if there is anything wrong with your health? We will achieve it through multiple product iterations. The current product is called the pod, which is the one you have. There are different versions, but it's called the pod, the technology. And on one side, it improves your sleep already through heating and cooling. So the temperature gets automatically adjusted during the night based on your biometrics and your preferences. Each side of the bed can have a different temperature ranging between 50 and 110 degrees. At the same time, the bed and or the cover, it comes in two form factors, has sensors embedded into that. So you don't have to wear anything, you don't have to charge anything, but you wake up in the morning and you have your sleep data, your heart rate data, and your respiration data. So we are already achieving on a smaller scale our two pillars of compressing your sleep by improving its efficiency and saving your life by monitoring your core biometrics.
Yeah, I love that. And one of the things that, one of the reasons that sent me on sort of this research binge is my own sort of sleep habits. I tend to be a snorer. I have some sleep apnea. And when I looked at my deep sleep was not, very good at all. I was getting, according to the Aura Ring, for example, I was getting only sometimes, between 5 and 15 minutes of deep sleep per night. And I tended to feel that. Two things have helped me with my deep sleep that have been pretty dramatic. One, I went from about 5% deep sleep to about 15 to 20% now as percentage of deep sleep using 8 Sleep, using the pod, your product, and also CBD and some other things that I've done. The thing that I want to sort of understand here is how one of the things that oftentimes come up when we have these discussions is how accurate is this data and how is this data being tracked? Because I know some people who are sort of in the biohacking space, they're going to say, how sensitive is this and how reliable is it and how translatable is it for something like the Aura Ring versus 8 Sleep? Do you have any tips for us there?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a great topic. So first of all, we are running 3 clinical trials, 2 with a very large hospital in New York and 1 with one of the largest hospitals in San Francisco. And we do that for 2 purposes. On one side, we want to collect what is called truth data, so medical grade data, and compare our data to a polysomnograph or an EKG. And second, we want to also be able to start detecting the first episodes of sleep apnea and atrial fibrillation. So these clinical trials are super important. Second, we built our own in-house medical grade lab. So we bought a medical grade EKG, and we also have a device that is comparable to a polysomnograph. And we keep comparing our device to that. Bottom line is this, at least for us. We are extremely accurate on heart rate. So based on what we have seen, we are within 1 heartbeat per minute compared to a medical grade EKG. We are extremely accurate on respiration because our technology really works like a stethoscope. So you're sleeping on a Wi-Fi connected stethoscope. Sleep is a challenge for everyone, wearables and us. And the reason is simple. The best way and the most accurate way to detect your sleep is through EEG. So you should wear one of those bands. You probably have seen some companies selling them, and they pick your brain waves. Through the brain waves, we would know with 98% certainty, 95% certainty, your different sleep stages. The problem of those devices, they are extremely uncomfortable. No one wants to wear it. A couple of companies tried, and some of them they didn't work out. And so what wearables and as we are doing is through movement and heart rate and respiration, we are inferring what is your sleep stage. For example, in REM, you don't move, is when you dream. So your heart rate is almost awake because you're dreaming. You're not moving, and there are another couple of factors. And so we detect that as a sort of, we predict that as REM. So bottom line is the level of accuracy is probably in the 80% range right now. The more data we collect, the more accurate we will become. It just requires more time compared to heart rate and respiration because it's more complicated from a data standpoint.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And how about for the heart rate variability? Because I know there's some variations there as well. How accurate are you in that regard? In terms of heart rate variability.
Based on our data there, we are really extremely accurate. Again, we are comparable to a medical grade EKG. We're really close to that range. And because we have a surface and you're sleeping on our device, we should be way more accurate than a wearable that instead is just going through your fingers or your arm. Obviously, like everything, there are different conditions, right? So let's say you're tossing and turning a lot. That is one thing. Let's say that you have a kid or a pet in the bed that can have an impact on your data. But if you are having a standard night and you're sleeping on your side of the bed alone, though in those conditions, we are extremely accurate.
That's fantastic. So let me ask a couple things that I know my listeners are going to wonder about. How and I can answer this as a user, right? But how did you build the mattress? Because like one of the things we hear a lot about is people when they talk about sleeping. Lots of people like to sleep on different sort of surfaces. So some people like their sleeping surface to be more firm, others a little bit more soft. And probably people are going to want to know what is the actual base of the bed in terms of the actual material that the mattress is actually made of.
Yeah, it's a great question. So the way we approached that was just to work with the best. So we started working with the largest, or one of the largest, but I think it's the largest foam manufacturer in the world. They are a multi-billion-dollar business. They are best in class. They have been in business for 20, 30 years. And so we developed a special combination of foams based on our data. Everything we do at 8 Sleep is based on data, not just on a rule of thumb based on what might look comfortable. And so our data were saying that this type of firmness and this type of foam mix was the perfect for our users. We also use a bunch of machines where we are able to calculate the compression of our beds and what is their curve compared to any other dumb bed that you can find in the market. And based on that, plus the feedback from thousands and thousands of users in the field, we are where we are now.
Yeah, and one of the things I love, Matteo, that really gets me excited about you is this is a technology. I'm a science guy like you, so I mean I could tell you and I are very much like that. And one of the things that you and I would probably tell anyone who doesn't understand science is that this is an emerging field, right? So anytime you're going to be a scientifically based company, you're grabbing data and you're letting the data refine your approach, right? So rather than having your own bias and saying, well, Matteo loves to sleep on a particular type of mattress, it sounds like what you all are doing is saying, what are the best mattresses that science shows give the most, sort of support? What are the biometrics we need to get? And then you're gathering data along the way. And I guess the question for me is, how much data are you all now gathering? I'm curious, how many people are sleeping on this bed? How much data are you getting? And then how are you using that data to upgrade the bed? Because I know since I bought my first pod, I was excited to see that you actually upgraded the technology within about a year of me getting that first pod, which is exciting to me because what that means is you all are actually using this data and refining and improving your product. But can you give us a little bit of a sense of how you're using this data? How much are you getting of this data?
Yeah. So we have several thousand people sleeping on our devices every single night. We are collecting hundreds of millions of data points, of health data points per day. So we are really becoming one of the largest databases in the world, and not just for sleep, but also for health, because as we were saying, we also track heart rate and respiration. The more data we can collect, obviously we are complying with all the best practices, all anonymized, aggregated, right? All that. So no privacy concerns. But the more data we collect in aggregated and anonymized, the more we can help researchers, the more we can help medicine, doctors, and at the same time, we can refine the quality and accuracy of our own data. We have a medical advisory board where we have professors from Harvard, Stanford, UPenn, Mount Sinai. And the reason why they join us is because in one night we collect more data than probably what they have seen in their whole career. This is the beauty of doing things at scale. And so one of the things I'm really proud of is if we can share more of our knowledge and our learning with doctors and researchers, we can probably know more about how our biological body works at night.
Yeah, so let's briefly touch on then just a little bit of the science here in terms of the benefits. And so one of the things that got me excited about going and looking in this direction and made me discover your particular product is a very tiny study that I read on 5 men. It's very, very small study that had them sleeping in a sleep center at the National Institutes of Health every night at 66 degrees, where they had several arms of this particular study. They started them out sleeping at 75 degrees, and these guys just wore light scrubs like, nurses and doctors would wear in the hospital room, and a light sheet over top of them. And the ambient temperature was turned down to 75 degrees. And then they slept in that for a few weeks. And then they moved them to 66 degrees. They slept in that for a few weeks, moved them back to 75, and then up to as hot as 81. And one of the things that this showed in this very small study is that the higher temperatures interfered with many of the sort of stages of sleep, especially deep sleep, and that the cold temperature was able to not only help with deep sleep, but also, most importantly, activate and double, actually, the brown adipose tissue, the brown fat cells that are highly active. They're kind of between sort of the muscles and the fat in terms of their activity. And there were many beneficial metabolic changes in this. And so what else do you know about this science, perhaps that I don't, that people could really use in terms of the benefit of turning the temperature down or up?
Yeah, so there are a bunch of clinical studies out there. One of the simplest way to read about that is in the book Why We Sleep by the Professor Matthew Walker. There is a whole section about thermoregulation. If I remember correctly, he mentions that the studies prove that you can fall asleep up to 20% faster, and you can get up to 20% more deep sleep. Mm-hmm. Then second, if you go on Twitter, there is a bunch of people that posted their data from their Aura or their Whoop after using our product. And some of them, they have seen up to 40% more deep sleep. Mm-hmm. So kind of similar to your experience, mm-hmm. right? So major increase in that. What we see internally is even more. So we see that we can help people fall asleep faster. They can fall asleep 10, 12 minutes faster than what they used to. On average, we help you reduce your toss and turns by 30%. We help you reduce your wake ups by 40%. So you have a way more restful sleep. And then there is all this data about REM and the deep sleep that you can gain just through thermoregulation. One important thing to say for everyone listening is when you hear people saying, oh, you should sleep at 68 degrees, is wrong. And the reason is simple. Your body temperature changes during the night. So 68 degrees could be right for, 11 p.m., whatever, a certain time for 1 hour. But for the rest of the time, you might need 68.5 or you might need 69.7. That is what we do. Based on your biometrics, we keep changing temperature in order to follow your circadian rhythm.
Yeah. So how does that do that? I noticed when I set up my 8 sleep format, I end up falling asleep at a -1, right? So this thing goes to +10 all the way down to -10. I get in bed and have it set at my bedtime around 9, because I go to bed usually as early as 9 and as late as around 11. So I set my sleep time to 10 p.m. Yeah. It turns on -1. So when I get in the bed, it's kind of cold. And then once I fall asleep, and this is a question, but I'm phrasing it as a statement. But once I fall asleep, I have that drop down to -5. And then as I get into sort of the later sleeping ranges, it jumps back up to 0. So, and then +1 to sort of wake me up. And so the question then is in general, for someone like myself or people in general, are you seeing any general trends like this, that we want to go to sleep generally a little bit, at a lower temperature, and then even lower in the middle of the night and then come back up? Or are you seeing this to be completely individualized? What kind of data can you help us understand about how that works in terms of regulating these temperatures that the bed adjusts to during the night?
Yeah, so your settings are really good. So congrats for that. Mm-hmm. The rule of thumb is it should be a U curve, right? So you should get into a bed that it could be as you like it. It shouldn't be too cold that your extremities feel cold, because if that happens, your heart rate would accelerate to warm them up and you wouldn't fall asleep. So you don't want to have cold feet and cold hands. So just find the temperature that you like. Is purely subjective, but it's not too cold to cool down your extremities. As soon as you fall asleep, you want the temperature to drop, because in the first part of the night is when you tend to have more deep sleep compared to REM. In the second part of the night, instead, you want what is called thermal neutrality. So for you to get into REM, you need to be in a thermal neutral environment. And the reason is that while you're in REM, your brain deactivates temperature control because you're dreaming. And so if the brain is fearing that it's too hot or cold and you could die, it wouldn't let you get into REM. So you need to be in a neutral environment from a temperature standpoint. And then for the wake up, that is completely subjective. You can go really cold, you can go really warm. In both cases, you are reactivating your metabolism and reactivating your heart rate. And that is how you wake up naturally before the alarm goes off.
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? It's really cool how this bed works. If you guys are listening, one of the things that we do, you think about when the sun goes down at night, and our ancestors used to go to sleep when the sun went down. Well, when the sun goes down, the temperature is actually cooling. So the temperature around you is actually cooling. And that's a signal to our body. Our body core temperature drops right before bed as well. This is one of the reasons why hot showers before bed can aid us to go to sleep. But this bed is doing this essentially for us, which is really, really interesting. Couple things, Matteo. So does it automatically, when someone goes to sleep on your bed, does it know when you fall asleep and then begin to adjust the second temperature, or is it just based on time?
No, it's based on when you fall asleep. Mm-hmm. And that is when what is called initial phase in your app, in our app, changes the temperature from bedtime to initial phase. What we are also developing is what is a new function where first we will adjust the temperature based on weather changes. So let's say there is a storm tomorrow in New York, the weather will be way colder. We will provide you with recommendations about how you should adjust temperature settings. Yeah. That based on the temperature in your zip code and the temperature in the bedroom. And then the next steps will be to automatically adjust temperature based on multiple biometrics to really optimize your sleep to the next level.
Yeah, so you guys are building out all of these things slowly as you go. And that is one of the other questions I had. I think one of the things people might ask, they go, okay, well, I get that this mattress is changing temperature, but how does what I set my thermostat, how does that interact with this mattress? And what about covers as well? Like I know when I was in LA before getting your mattress, I would turn my AC down to about 63 degrees so that it was cold around me. And then I was in the sheets. And now what I typically do is leave my ambient temperature just the same, right around 68. And I let the bed do that for me. But what are some directions in terms of how people can regulate that using your product as well? Should they be tweaking the central air conditioning as well as the bed, or what are some tips you can give there?
Yeah, what we see is because we are able to cool you and we are way more effective because you're in contact with the bed, right? Mm-hmm. So the thermal transfer is way more effective. A lot of our customers are actually saving money with their AC because before maybe they were fighting with the partner because one of the two wanted a very cold temperature and the other one wanted a warmer temperature. Now they can meet in the middle in terms of air temperature, and then each side of the bed can be set at whatever they like the most. Yeah. So some of our customers, they moved even back from, 68 to 72, let's say. And so they are saving money because they have to cool down less their bedroom.
Yeah, that is certainly. I noticed it was a really cool thing with me and my girlfriend. She likes to sleep very hot. I like to sleep
Yeah.
very cold, and so setting her up on the other side of the bed was sort of really nice for me as well. So anything else that you want to add here, Matteo? One of the things that I wanted to know is, are you getting any feedback from individuals who are saying this has improved other aspects of their life in terms of mood, weight loss, that kind of stuff, just from an anecdotal perspective? I know that you're going to be running, research on this, and I don't know if you're going to be looking at body composition, but one of the things that is interesting to me as someone who's done all his work in medicine in the weight loss field is that we no longer have to sort of bioregulate our temperature. And that is one of the reasons perhaps why obesity has become sort of an issue. So I'm wondering, are you seeing any benefits, any of these metabolic benefits in terms of weight loss that some of these tiny studies have shown?
So, I mean, obviously there is a direct correlation between sleep and nutrition in both directions. So the better you sleep, the less junk food you will crave. There is an hormonal change inside your body where you will not need sugar and carbs. And so as an effect, you will be able to eat in a healthier way. You will also crave less food. So that is already proven medically by a bunch of studies. In our specific case, we don't have yet a specific clinical study that we run, but we will get there.
Yeah. All right, man. So anything else that you want people to be aware of with this particular product? I mean, I know you're incredibly busy. I know what it's like to be an entrepreneur and you got a lot going on. I really appreciate your time, but is there anything else you would want to add? And also, where can people get in touch with you if they want to keep up with what you're doing and keep up with 8 Sleep and the research and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that our technology comes in 2 form factors. One is the mattress and one is the cover. So the mattress is the whole package, is the Lamborghini of the beds. The cover is a cover that you can install on your current bed to retrofit it with our technology. So based on whatever you prefer, technology is exactly the same, just a different option. You can check it out at 8sleep.com, 8 like the number, EIGHT sleep.com. And on the homepage, there is also my Twitter account. I'm pretty active on Twitter. I chat daily with our customers, so you can see a lot of feedback there and other people like you reporting 20%, 40% more deeper sleep with our product.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to follow there, Matteo. And I do think all of you are listening. If you caught what Matteo was saying there, it's a really important point because some of you are going to look at this and you can put Matteo's technology on your existing bed, or you can get the whole bed like I got. I find the foam mattress. I used to sleep on a Tempur-Pedic. This really is far more comfortable for me just in terms of the mattress. And I love the mattress you guys have. So I have the whole package. But it is worth noticing you can just get the essential cover that goes on that has all the biometrics and the way to read your physiology. Matteo, thanks you for taking the time, my friend. I so appreciate you. And I am going to, talk a little bit more as we end. I'm going to let you go, Matteo, but I'll tell people how to get the bed and all of that kind of stuff and a little bit more of the science. But I so appreciate your time, my friend. Thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. All right. So as you can see, this technology is freaking amazing, right? We're starting to see now that there are all these amazing technologies that we can use to benefit our health and our fitness and even our weight loss efforts. A couple things that I think are critical here when we start looking at sleep technology like this. One of the things, and the thing that, if you listen to Matteo talk about the idea that they are gathering a ton of data. And so more is going to be coming from 8 Sleep. But the thing that I like the most is the heart rate variability, the ability to sort of adjust the temperature. By the way, back when I had, I think I had COVID very early on in the process. And one of the things that I did was gave myself an artificial fever by really pumping up the heat in this bed. And so not only will this bed cool down, but it also will heat up. And one of the things that is very beneficial whenever you're sick with any illness is to give yourself an artificial fever. And so one of the things I did when I was ill was really pump up the heat on the mattress as well. And of course, it has 2 sides. So if you sleep with a partner, the partner can sleep cool or a little bit hotter. Just so I'll let you know my settings. I typically go to bed at -1, which is slightly cool. And then in the winters, I have my initial sleep. When you go to sleep, this thing will essentially cool down when it sees that you're sleeping. And it does that by looking at respirations and movements and things like that. Heart rate, it goes, okay, Jade is now asleep, or you are now asleep. And then it begins to cool the body down even more. And I go to -5 in the winter. I go to -10 sometimes in the summer. And that's so cold that if I get up to pee at night, it's almost too cold, and I'll actually raise it a little bit. But it also does really increase my deep sleep. I've talked about this over and over again. My sleep is horrible. And two of the things that's benefited it, it's not perfect, but the three things really that have benefited my sleep the most is I wear a tongue retainer to stop some of the snoring that I do. I'm a little bit apneic. I use Zen from Cured Nutrition, which is one of the sponsors of the show, as you know. That has been huge. It doesn't correct fully, but without it, I sleep horribly. And other people I've heard have been incredibly grateful for recommending Zen. So don't forget about Cured Nutrition, one of the sponsors of the show. Check them out, www.curednutrition.com, Zen. But then also the 8 sleep system and sleeping in the cold. One of the things I have noticed, though, sort of a downside, is that I sleep so good with the 8 sleep mattress that sometimes when I'm at a hotel or something like that, I do really have to turn down the AC because I'm used to sleeping in the cold. And this, I think, has been highly beneficial for me in terms of bettering my sleep outcomes. And so one of the other things that works great, because some people oftentimes ask me, at least my friends do, they go, hey, Jade, you also own the Aura Ring and you own 8 Sleep. This is just one thing to kind of keep in mind here in terms of accuracy. They're still trying to perfect, this technology is still trying to extrapolate. Matteo talked a little bit about this. It's still trying to extrapolate exactly the stages of sleep, because in order to really know the stages of the sleep, you need to measure brain waves. And so obviously the Aura Ring and the 8 Sleep mattress, they don't do that yet. And so they extrapolate. They essentially say, well, how much are you moving? If you're not moving, that's associated with REM sleep. Your lowest heart rate occurs at deep sleep, that kind of thing. So it's looking at movement, heart rate variability, temperature, all of that to kind of gauge where you are in your sleep stage. But it's not perfect. And so when you're using the Aura Ring or something like that to look at sleep stages, it is going to be a little bit different than what shows up on the 8 Sleep mattress. I can tell you this, that the 8 Sleep mattress in terms of heart rate variability is, I think, a little bit more accurate than the Aura Ring, believe it or not. And that's simply because I've had HRV tested in other places, and the Aura Ring keeps me very low HRV. The 8 Sleep is more in alignment with other things like heart math and stuff like that. And so it's just to make sure that when you look at these things, you may actually see, well, wait, how come this isn't correlating exactly with my Aura Ring? It's sort of like body fat machines. You don't want to compare one to the other. You always use the same. So when you're comparing your vitals and statistics in HRV with the 8 Sleep mattress, you do that with that apparatus by itself. And if you're looking at the Aura Ring, you look at that one by itself. You don't try to compare. They're not going to be exactly the same. I can tell you also with the sleep stages, I think 8 Sleep is a little bit more accurate than the Aura Ring as well. And so just my assessment there, I love both tools. They're highly beneficial. But I do think the 8 Sleep might be a little bit more accurate in terms of what I'm seeing as compared with other things that I've seen in the past. But I actually use my Aura Ring more for my recovery because it's just on me more. It's on me all day versus sleeping at night in the bed is only for that amount of time. So I'm going to end the podcast here. I hope you got a sense of what cold sleep can do for you. I hope you also got the sense of what this particular mattress can do. I know some of you are going to ask, do I have a resource for getting the 8 Sleep mattress? If you go to 8sleep.com on checkout, if you use the code NEXTLEVEL, you will get a discount on that code. And I don't believe that I get a kickback from that at all. Usually I like to tell you if I get a kickback. I do get a kickback from Cured Nutrition and some of the other sponsors, but I think this is just for you and the listeners of the podcast that 8 Sleep is passing on to my listeners. So if you want to get this mattress and you're in the market for a mattress and you want this high-tech mattress, which I highly, highly recommend, on checkout, it's next level in the coupon code on 8sleep.com, and you'll get a discount on this. Before I let you go, let me tell you about a couple other things. I am going to be bringing on some other sponsors to the show. Some of my favorites. Organifi is a product that I've been using for a long time. Actually, the owner of the company is a very good friend of mine, Drew Canoli. Many of you may know Organifi. I'll be talking a little bit more about that, but don't forget about paleovalley.com as another sponsor. These sponsorships are important to keep the podcast going. And so please make sure you check out Cured Nutrition, paleovalley.com. Use the code NEXTLEVEL. I will get a kickback. They get the sale. Like I always say, you'll get a discount. So it's a win-win-win. And if you want to get the 8 Sleep system, it's also the code NEXTLEVEL. You'll get a discount on this. I don't get a kickback from that one at all. And you'll see some more coming soon, and just want to give you a heads up. Probably what I'm going to do, since I'm not talking about these things all the time, is I'm probably going to record some dedicated commercials that will break into the podcast. For those of you who have been listening to the podcast, of course, you know these. You're probably already getting these supplements, but for new people, it'll make things a little bit easier. Anyway, thanks so much for enjoying the show. I do have a special treat for you coming up. In the next couple of weeks, I am going to be doing an entire series on female-specific hormones. I am launching the Metabolic Female Certification for Professionals. I know a lot of you are professionals who listen to the podcast. That is coming, and I'm going to be doing 2 to 4 episodes, perhaps, all on metabolism around the female cycle and all of that kind of stuff. I know you guys love this stuff. Watch that. Watch the promotion coming for the female metabolism certification. It's one of the only certifications like this of its kind. I pride myself. I was one of the first ones, if not the first one, to ever create the first female-only workout program designed around female hormones. Now I am bringing that certification to you professionals. It is going to be coming out. I'm going to be doing a series of solo-sodes, just me, talking about female metabolism in depth for the next 2 to 4 episodes after this one. So I hope you will join me and look forward to that. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you at the next show.